When you look back at Naruto and think what greatly influenced the world you come to love, did you think about the god of shinobi Hagoromo, maybe the deadly Akatsuki, or how about the most pivotal of all, the great leaders, the Kage, shaping the world and its economy, power, and prosperity? None stand out more from them than the Hokage, some of the most pivotal and captivating characters in the entire series. Whether you enjoy Minato's super speed or Hashirama's grand strength, there's no denying it that there is a controversy when you rank them in a list of power and say it's objective. Many Naruto creators have given their 2 cents on this topic, and I figured I would because it'd only be right if I did the same. However, those that should know me and grasp that I do not really formulate my take solely on popular belief or for views, rather what should be the honest truth. This video will display that very, very well, as I'll try to adequately expound upon my placements to which may shock you, and it will not just be the Hokage when they were alive, but both the times when there was another version that would be ranked a lot differently and be in a different placement, and it will be kind of taken as a separate character, if you will. For example, Hokage Minato and KCM2 Minato will be at 2 different spots on this list. Now, for someone like Tsunade, there won't really need to be something like that, and I'm not just going to erroneously waste your time. With that being said, all the separate characters that we will be using are Sage Mode Hashirama, Edo Base Hashirama, Hokage Tobirama, Prime Hiruzen, Old Hiruzen, the Danzo that participated in the 5 Kage Summit, KCM2 Minato, Hokage Minato, Full Power Tsunade, Hokage Kakashi, DMS Kakashi, and Hokage Naruto. And then to end it off, we will have the newest addition, not say he's first to end it off, but we will have the newest addition to this list, Shikamaru. So yeah, if you can't tell, this ranking will not be like every other Hokage ranking video where they will dodge forums and give their viewer an agreeable, rational conclusion that's just going to get them a bunch of likes. However, I will rank it all for you guys on what should truly be called the honest truth. These are placements, some of these placements, sorry, are okay to swap, in which I do kind of talk about that whenever we get to there. And I get to a point where a good majority of these are very close, and I do get that. With that being said, though, before we get directly into this video, I'd first ask you guys to like and subscribe, as there is a lot of effort put into this video, and I feel that you may learn something, and that you definitely will, if you can't tell by the length. I definitely put a lot of work, and yeah, and maybe you'll just find a new way to better articulate a take that you've had for a long time. Without further ado, let's rank the Hokage. So for how the direct ranking will be decided, I'm simply going to go off how they would scale generally in comparison to the character below them. This, however, will not include things such as hard counters, as a reason that, yeah, they would still be demonstrably weaker and slower. An example of this is kind of like Conan being placed above Hidan in a typical ranking, which is fine contextually. However, Hidan would be like above her in strength. She just counters him very hard with her ability to fly. Now, of course, abilities will be taken into account here, and not just, speed and strength. However, I want to get that out of the way. Now, to get into the last placement, or the person in last, the temporal placement, I guess, if you will, Danzo. Danzo is actually rather underrated, and I've touched on him in many other videos. And now, him and Tsunade can be swapped. It just depends on how you argue. Danzo during the 5 Kage Summit was capable of blowing the back out of version 3 Susanoo, reacting to the crossbow, and hit Sasuke with his vacuum style. This would be a stronger Sasuke, believe it or not, than the one who is removing and moving relative to the version 1 Lightning Cloak Raikage and raw combat speed. This is shown a few times, such as when they both charge at each other, and Sasuke moves under his arm and stabs him. One thing that needs to be noted about this, however, is that Sasuke was using his 3 Tomoe Sharingan, meaning that if he would to be using his Mangekyo, he should be blitzing this version 1A, as the 3 Tomoe Sharingan to the Mangekyo Sharingan is a blitz level amp. This isn't really too extreme, as when Sasuke uses his Mangekyo, the Raikage also puts his version 2 Lightning Cloak up, respectively. So this Danzo, believe it or not, would be faster than the Raikage of the 5 Kage Summit. Now, the reason why he isn't higher is simply because it's really hard to assert that the Raikage stayed at the same strength or speed and didn't get stronger to the war arc. The reason as to why the contrary is more likely is due to a greater emphasis on better feats, such as A, keeping up with KCM1 Naruto, who would be above like the MS Sasuke that was reacting to 5 Kage Summit Raikage. Now, for our next placement, we will have the legendary sucker, Tsunade. The Slug Princess is very powerful, which I know some of you may be asking, well, Virtue, if Danzo truly scales to the version 2 Raikage, then like how you were claiming, shouldn't he beat Tsunade as well? Which to answer that, this kind of goes off the same reason as I was just talking about, that this Tsunade is relative to a stronger and faster Raikage. That is demonstrably true when considering that the Slug Princess has the ability, the 100 healings. This ability allows Tsunade to reach into years and years worth of chakra, and that she could like exponentially exert. Sorry, allowing her to be relative to a version 2A and whatnot. So to add consistency to that, in the early war arc, Tsunade is able to react to a holding back Edo Madara, who is reacting to a V2A. I know, which Madara notes that A is faster than her, yet she is stronger than him. However, I do think that many of her feats were blown way out of proportion, and a majority of her feats and really good feats on Madara, such as breaking the Susanoo, were done with another's aid. When you compare like her to some of the other contenders on this list, you'll finally find that they are literal magnitudes of order stronger than her, and that's kind of why she's just not higher, if you get what I mean. Hiruzen Sarutobi, a character who we all look back at remembering his strength. However, I'm sure most of us noted that how old he was, why yes, Prime Hiruzen is a monster, and we will delve into his power later. But for now, I want you guys to realize that even as an old man, Hiruzen is no joke and is rightfully above Tsunade and Danzo, even whilst being nearly 70 years of age. Hiruzen versus Orochimaru is quite the titanic fight, in which many tend to one and either forget Hiruzen's performance, or two, think that Orochimaru was outdoing him. However, what if I said this is not the case? Well, it's not. Hiruzen was able to react to Orochimaru nearly at every corner, even whilst being in a lackadaisical state of mind, being needed to at the thought of killing his student, his best student, I guess I should say, someone who's kind of like a son to him. This is shown when Hiruzen blatantly shows that he doesn't want to fight him. So even in this weakened Edo Tensei state, he was still able to react to Hashirama and Tobirama, which at first seems okay since they're just really weakened states. We don't really know how strong they are. And they're definitely not like as strong as they were in the war. I just need to get out of the way. Someone may say something, but well, what do I really mean? Well, essentially, Orochimaru placed ceiling tags in the back of their head, and it's merely meant to suppress personality and give them control over the chakra network. This is shown vividly when you can see Orochimaru is actually the one weaving these signs for all of their jutsu, meaning that every time Hiruzen reacts to the Hokage, it's actually this suppressed Hiruzen reacting to Orochimaru rather than the Hokage, meaning that even while suppressed and reaching 70 years of age, Hiruzen is still outperforming the strongest Sannin. Once Hiruzen gains his resolve, Orochimaru was instantly being pushed to the back foot, and Hiruzen was blitzing him, and the Hokage with the Reaper Seals. So, yeah, Hiruzen is not below a full power Orochimaru, which he is directly above Tsunade, as even when Orochimaru loses his arms, he's still very much capable of beating a full power Tsunade, which this has further backing on since a early Tsunade, who is said to be the strongest and most beautiful woman in Konoha, is still a rival to Kabuto, Orochimaru's underling. Which, even if you want to like subscribe to the idea that Tsunade gains immense strength from this point to the war, that's fine, as Hiruzen is stated to be the strongest of all five Kage in several mediums, such as the data book and from Kabuto himself. This places Hiruzen above the Raikage A, who was later a rival to Tsunade. Still don't believe me? Well, Hiruzen is, when he is reanimated, he's able to combat the Guru statue better than the 5 Kage or a fatigued 5 Kage. So this Hiruzen is certainly above the characters such as the Raikage who are blitzing Sasuke and Tsunade. And it's like more is more to discuss about this Hiruzen, such as his like techniques that I haven't really gone over, and like how he earned the name the Professor. But I want to save those for when we get into like his prime self. Next up on our list is the Yellow Flash, potentially my favorite character on this entire list. Minato is a shinobi seen every few generations, as the fourth data book describes Minato, who led many weak platoons of shinobi to victory, ultimately making Konoha win the entire war. This allowed Minato to be praised as, quote, the greatest in godlike speed among all shinobi. This would place Minato above the likes of characters such as Jiraiya, Sakumo, Orochimaru, Fugaku, and even Old Man Hiruzen in speed. So now, some would like to argue that this is directly placed Minato above Tobirama in speed. However, that is wrong, since Tobirama is long dead by this point. Some would like to say, well, Hiruzen saw Tobirama and praised Minato as being faster than Tobirama. This is also wrong, as the statement is a direct dependent clause on the idea that's not fully conveyed, and there are simply too many assumptions to think that Hiruzen would make one-to-one comparisons in speed, and there wouldn't be some sort of memory loss or anything like that, which is fine, as Minato is still extremely impressive, being able to combat a 17-year-old Obito who attacked the Leaf Village. In my How Strong is Obito video, I go in depth in this entire fight, but for the main points, Obito and Minato are very much relative in speed, with Minato may have an edge, reacting to each other on several instances, kicking off the ground at the same time and outsmarting each other. However, it was at the end where Minato showed his sheer intellect coupled with his mastery of the Flying Thunder God, where he blitzed Obito, literally statuing him, slamming the Rasengan into his back. The fourth data book described the scene as Minato demonstrating his perfect mastery over the Flying Thunder God that severely overwhelmed Obito. Now, on the other side of this page, it also talks about how the Flying Thunder God, invented by Tobirama, was completely perfected by Minato, becoming one of his strong suits. This Obito is implied to be stronger than even like the pain. And now there are some interpretations to that statement, and I really want to save those for another video. But Minato would also have been fatigued here as prior, as he used Flying Thunder God several times, and he literally used a version of it that creates a little crack in space and time, which Minato used to dispel a blast of a giant Bijou bomb far out of Konoha. Yet Minato was still capable of again keeping pace and outspeeding Obito. So if this doesn't really put a live Minato above characters such as Hiruzen, who thought he literally couldn't do this during the Nine Tails attack, I don't really know what does. Even with the games, it's also implied that in order to become Hokage, Minato faced Jiraiya and Hiruzen, and he still won. So Minato is rightfully above them, and the previous previous placements, below him. Minato's best attribute, however, is his extremely fast movement with either Body Flicker or Flying Thunder God, which I'm sure you've all heard by now that when Minato blitzed the Hokage to the battlefield, he used Shinshin no Jutsu, or Body Flicker. However, there are several instances where the Flying Thunder God is called that as well. So if you believe that Tobirama concedes that he is better at Flying Thunder God, that's fine. And again, it is very consistent. And if you want to say it's Body Flicker due to Flying Thunder God being supposedly instantaneous in some medians, then sure. But it simply just puts him above in a travel speed or his in his abilities speed, but not really a reaction or combat speed. However, it definitely should note that in the data book, it does imply that FTG still abides by the speed equation and does still have travel times and whatnot. So that does kind of seem like more consistent, which is why do I say this? And well, I'll talk about Tobirama like later and why it'd be inconsistent for Minato's like raw movement speed to be above him. But for like Hashirama, he was able to react to characters such as Madara, who in base, literally that same Madara was reacting like KCM2 Naruto, who's literally stated to have long surpassed him. So it would be kind of inconsistent, I guess. So him having a faster Flying Thunder God could be more sound. Since Tobirama, there's a lot of implications that he can't do what Minato can, such as like he can't teleport as many people and whatnot. So yeah, now that I mentioned Hashirama, that actually leads me into my next placement. So, of course, to get a weak Hashirama is quite difficult. However, if I had to find one, this would be it. By all means, though, Hashirama is not weak, even in this form, as whenever he was brought back to the war, he is still combating Edo Madara in base. Now, their fight is actually really spread out, and we don't really see all of it, or much of it, I guess, honestly, but besides like a page every like several chapters. However, I think I found something quite magnificent. So the first two fight panels we can see Madara is engaging with weapons, and Hashirama is in the first instance, but in the second, Madara tries to blitz him with the Renegon odds, and Hashirama was able to dodge this in base and outspeed him. Now, the next is quite a bit after when Naruto charges up the giant Rasen Shuriken. We get a side panel that shows base Hashirama had Madara tied down to the ground and beat, and says, "Perfect timing, son of the fourth." This means that base Hashirama is above the Edo Madara, who is capable of combating and outperforming KCM2 Naruto and the 5 Kage. This would put Hashirama at KCM2 level in speed, which I know that some people actually believe that Hokage Minato is that level in speed, which I disagree, and I talk about this pretty heavily in my Obito video, but I'll go over it here as well a little better, since this Hashirama would actually believe it or not, blitz that Minato. Yes, he would blitz the speed god himself. So that argument kind of goes off the idea that stated when like Minato was talking to Sage Naruto during the Pain fight, he mentions to Naruto that Pain isn't the real threat. Rather, the masked man is the true leader of the Akatsuki, and that Naruto will need to master the Nine Tails to beat him. Which obviously having to master it would kind of have to would be having to acquire KCM2, right? That's like the argument. However, for one, Minato in this scene is kind of warning Naruto that, hey, I cannot help you anymore. And now that you're not on the level that you need to be, you need to work on mastering the Nine Tails in order for you to beat that masked man. That's like your only hope. Uh, so this Minato is not really claiming that that's exactly what he needs. He needs to be the level of Minato when Minato beat Obito for number two. Minato actually does have zero idea of how strong KCM2 would actually be, as he's obviously never seen it, which I don't really have to explain that one. However strong like Minato did think KCM2 would be, he was wrong, as KCM2 is relative to a white mask Obito who is several fold stronger than the teenage yellow mask Obito due to such amps such as the Renegon. And for the last point, it is stated by Kurama that Naruto had long surpassed Minato and Kushina, which aligns with the constant comparisons for Minato to be KCM1 level in speed, Sage Mode Naruto for Senjutsu, Rasen Shuriken for attack potency, and so on and so forth. So this Hashirama is certainly stronger than the Minato that I mentioned prior, and I don't really think that anyone would really doubt that, regardless of the nerve. Hashirama should definitely beat Minato up with his Wood Golem, which is more than capable of scaling to like Madara's Susano and speed and AP and stuff like that. So not to mention that even this weakened Edo State, he tells Naruto that he almost like has as much chakra as himself. So again, the chance of any character below him being able to react and combat or outlast Hashirama would be so erroneous. On the other hand, that only pertains to a live Minato, as whenever we get into KCM2 Minato, which, if you couldn't guess, propels Minato's power to a whole another level. This Minato was more than capable of reacting to things equally with Edo Tobirama, and they outperformed the Pincer attack on Jubito, which with each reciprocal round robin and the flying thunder god respectively. Now that Minato actually becomes very dazed due to him slicing Obito, his beloved student, which I will get into the daze and what people truly think it is later. However, for now, we can move to Minato's most impressive showing, which is Naruto and Minato channel their chakra through their fist. And however, this isn't a KCM2 Naruto who is on the level of Hashirama. No, this is a Biju Sage Mode Naruto, which is essentially Naruto combines the 10 times Sage multiplier to the full power KCM2, which Minato grants Naruto chakra as well. And then Tobirama grabs both avatars, and KCM2 Minato moves with Biju Sage Mode Naruto, and their arms kind of go along equal speed, slamming the Rasengan into Jubito. So the fourth data book claims this as Minato supplied Naruto with powerful support. Now, of course, there are arguments to try to downplay this feat, and which Minato, such as one here, moves along the lines as, quote, we don't really have any idea of how much Minato was actually aiding Naruto, in which I would argue is just kind of like it at least be like half, since it's stated to be a more powerful support, and contextually in reference to Naruto, even with them like still being somewhat relative in their movement speed, back prior to this KCM2 Minato was leading the charge against Jubito, kind of making this a little more consistent that he would still be a relative to this Naruto who's still reacting to Jubito, as they both obviously do that. And yeah, again, Minato was like leading the whole charge once Tobirama was gone, and Minato does actually really well. And again, I will get deep into this in the next section. However, know that this Minato is certainly stronger than every character on this list so far, and that is not really that close. As again, Hashirama is leagues above all those below him, yet Minato is still a whole Sage Mode amp faster and stronger. And Minato still has access to all the jutsu that I mentioned in his Hokage section, such as the Flying Thunder God, Rasen Shuriken, no, not Rasen Shuriken, sorry, the Rasengan, and the Flash Howl Dance, and the the Flying Thunder God teleportation barrier. So yeah, how much like these actually would drain Minato like before is not really a problem anymore, and is virtually solved since he has Kurama now. So Minato is extremely potent now. With that being said, though, the last thing I really just want to discuss and touch on real quick is something that I've heard people use to say that Hashirama would be above him. It's in the late war when Kakashi and KCM2 Minato are relative. And like, no, this is neither an anti-feat nor an inconsistency. Rather, Kakashi is just really that fast. And I believe that him actually being relative emphasizes my point about Minato being above KCM to Naruto level Hashirama, as a weaker Kakashi in the war was blitzing KCM2 Naruto and reacting to the white mask Obito and whatnot. So yeah, don't really try to downplay Minato with this with Kakashi. And trust me, you'll see what I mean in just a Hokage Kakashi is definitely the weirdest placement on this list, and for a few reasons. So he could be in a few different places, and I'm going to just place him right here, and you can do with that if you will. And I will say that Hokage Kakashi is mainly only shown in the novels for like his time as Hokage. And some may say that, well, since he lost a Sharingan, he'd be much weaker, right? In which, in the Kakashi Hiden novel, it's actually said that Kakashi grows far stronger since when he fought Obito and Madara back in the war, which there are a few ways to go about this. I'll go with the safer one first, and I'll explain that Kakashi may be higher or whatnot. So in the late end of the war, Kakashi is able to react alongside KCM2 Minato. As you can see that Kakashi is at a further distance to Zetsu and still at the same point at the same time, meaning that Kakashi is arguably faster here, and Minato has like no reason to hold back and whatnot. So since Kakashi as Hokage is much faster and stronger, he would be above this Minato. Now, there's another interpretation, and it's that Wara Kakashi is able to blitz characters with his perception speed and calm way. So this is shown against KCM1 Naruto, White Mask Obito, and KCM2 Naruto. So if we run with this, then technically in order for him to be faster and stronger in his movement speed, would inherently actually have to be faster than the Kamui perception. Now, some could certainly say that this is just his muscular and bodily movement, as it would be like he would still have like the faster perception due to the Sharingan, and he just wouldn't have that ability anymore, and it would just be an ability rather than a stat thing. So if you subscribe to him not being above the Kamui Blitz, then he would be somewhere between here and above Tobirama if you do like subscribe to the and there's not really like any way to quantify one above the other. So yeah, he's either here or above Tobirama if you do subscribe to him being above the Kamui speed like for the perception. So yeah, he would be above both and probably below Hashirama if I had to say. Now, for his abilities, I'm sure some of you guys do not know all of his abilities, like or at least the full extent of his abilities. So first off, the Purple Lightning, essentially a Chidori that's just amped to all hell, or a Raikiri that's amped to all hell, I guess, if you want to say that. Now, there's even arguments for this being instantaneous speed. Yeah, I know, but I'm not going to get into that here. Kakashi is capable of using a 30-foot quartz wall that surrounds an entire village for 3 days, even whilst it was like taking damage and whatnot, using his chakra to heal it. Or how about my favorite ability that he has now, his fire style water mist, which is a flaming bird like mist that constantly protects him. For example, Kakashi doesn't really react to some rubble and the bird does for him. So yeah, Kakashi is still really cool. And again, his placement and his interpretation is based. So yeah, this is kind of where he's supposed to be, and do with that as you will. Yes, don't worry, I hear you. Tobirama above KCM Minato and novel Kakashi. But please sit back and hear me out. If you absolutely want me to take a highball interpretation for Minato and place him above Sage Hashirama, then yes, place him above Tobirama if you do that. However, Tobirama has really good assertions in which I'm sure you've heard me talk about his incredible feats against Jubito and whatnot, but I'm going to go over them here as I am like the Tobirama guy. So when Jubito first appears, Hashirama states that Jubito is more powerful than him, meaning that Tobirama was more than capable of blitzing and reacting to an above Hashirama level opponent. This is very consistent for Tobirama in instances such as him reacting to Jubito and blitzing him with the bombs, blitzing him with the teleportation Rasengan, blitzing him to in the pincer attack, and a few other times. And believe it or not, this actually becomes more hyper consistent when you take his interaction with Sage Madara. However, him reacting to Madara is something that we really need. Madara looks down on Tobirama, seeing Tobirama in his weakened state. Madara literally thanks the heavens that Tobirama is not at full speed and places him in a similar tier as Hashirama, claiming, quote, "There's a reason you two brothers can never regain your full power," end quote. But most importantly, he states that, quote, "You who used to boast the fastest speed of any shinobi," which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because this statement implies a few things. So, one, that the original Tobirama would be on the level of this Madara, as Madara displays a feat of how fast he once was. And it would also imply that Tobirama would be above Hashirama and Madara whilst alive in just speed. However, putting him above Sage Hashirama is questionable, and I'll go over that and why it's kind of consistent that Hashirama in Sage mode might be above Tobirama in speed. And so yeah, but we'll get into that in the next thing. But for here, I just want to put this out there that him being above this one-eyed Madara, or being relative to him in his prime, kind of means that he'd be above the Edo Tobirama who blitzed KCM2 Minato. Now, I've talked about this scene several times, but before Tobirama essentially uses a clone to perform this feat, in which it's noted that the clones are actually slower than himself. Even still, KCM2 Minato got blitzed by Jubito, and this scene begins with Minato trying to blitz Jubito, and Jubito slices his arm straight off while simultaneously placing an exploding Tsuken orb on Minato's right shoulder. while like where like his arm socket was, since it kind of got cut off. Which when Minato returns to the ground, Jubito points it out, in which Minato shows a blatant shock and incentive to grab it and to literally save his son Naruto, who's literally in close proximity to Minato, and then moving his left arm to the orb. Tobirama teleports there, grabs the orb, turns around, teleports to Jubito, and attempting to slam it into him, completely blitzing KCM2 Minato with just an Edo Tobirama clone. This is consistent with how Tobirama is capable of reacting and handling combination attacks with Minato against Jubito. However, the most common counterargument to this is that Minato is in a mental stupor or a daze, meaning that his reaction speed is severely lacking, or at least lacking to what it should have been. Now, the argument stimulates from the fourth data book, claiming that, quote, the one who would cheer him up from his stupor or daze, and it talks about Naruto. But now let's first establish that the kanji used for stupor is synonymous with just sadness, which is the reason as to why this is crucial is because a stupor is essentially a medical term for someone who is so mentally distraught to where the person is in a state of near unconsciousness. So when you take the idea into mind that this should just be sadness, it comes to a more appropriate conclusion for Minato's mental state. And when you research a little more about mental stupors, you can see that the most credible medical sources say it's a serious mental state where most people don't respond to normal conversation or stimuli. Rather, they only respond to physical stimulation. So this doesn't really fit in the fight with the days. According to the fourth data book, which spans from 637 to 643, that is the days. So yeah, we're kind of just going to analyze these chapters, and then you can conclude for yourself whether you believe that Minato is truly exceptionally weaker due to this sadness, or coupled with allowing yourself to seriously think that Minato is in a life-threatening stupor or is simply just sad. So, kicking chapter 637 off, just before Minato enters the days, Minato is shown with ellipses demonstrating his focus to kill Obito. I note this because many are quick to note that the ellipses are a secret sign to represent Minato's unresponsiveness. So, we know that in character, Minato has ellipses without being in the days. So, the next page, Minato shows a very frustrated face due to his conviction to kill Obito, the student who turned his back on all things Minato loved. So, before we go into the next page, I need you to look at Minato's facial expression here prior to the days, and then this is kind of when he's showing an intent to kill. So we will move back to this later, and you'll see why that's important when we move back to it. But Minato actually shows some sadness and is in the days, which will be from the 638, 39, 40, 41, and 42, which is the Tobirama Blitz stuff. So yeah, next we'll have the feat where unstable Jubito attempts to blitz Tobirama and Hashirama's clone, in which many are quick to compliment Tobirama for blitzing Jubito here. However, he actually perception blitzes Minato as well, as we can see that Minato states so swift in reference to Jubito, and then he notices that the bombs are placed and that Tobirama, he only notices like kind of when Tobirama is like scram, or whatnot. And then and then he states that, quote, Tobirama sure works quickly, end quote. So Minato is showing zero signs of any sort of sadness or reaction here. So following this, Tobirama claims that he made the Edo Tensei Jutsu primarily to pair it with his tandem paper bombs. Minato then interacts with Naruto about his flying regime, then notes that Sasuke is quite bright. Again, showing no sign of a daze still, which the reason why I'll get into this in a bit, but Minato powers up here after seeing unstable Jubito's state and analyzes that the Ten Tails has yet to sync with Obito. And now is the best time to strike. He then propels himself towards him using the Flash Howl dance. Chapter 640 opens up with Minato sweating due to his rigorous physical stimulation. Points out that his marks on Obito are no longer there, and then he shows signs of happiness as he smiles at the fact that his Naruto, his child, is just as accomplished as Sasuke, this prodigy. Obito's body then goes back to its unstable form, and Minato gives a frustrated look when thinking about Obito, which, when placed side by side to the one before the days, there isn't any large difference as Minato in his like bloodlusted intent. There is then an exploding True Seeker orb projected at Minato, meaning that Minato is now aware of what the flashing True Seeking orb does. The orb blows up on Obito, and Minato immediately deciphers what the orb did and how this will begin their next attack to further counter this. Which, after he throws the kunai, he notices that Obito is suffering, and he thinks back to the young Obito, the one destined to be Hokage. After seeing Obito cry, this is an instance where Minato snaps back into his lackadaisical sadness. So just pocket this. When Minato saw Kid Obito, he was sad. So, however, Minato goes back into an angry expression when thinking about how Obito is an adult and let himself down and did all this evil. This normal Minato charges at unstable Jubito, or at stable Jubito, sorry, and gets caught off guard by Obito uttering normal words. And then because he notices because before Obito was kind of like Obito, and now he's like fully there. And then so Minato kind of gets caught off guard here, and then gets his kunai cut by the true secret orb's rod. Minato, still with quick reactions, sees the orb and notes to Naruto and Sasuke that he's fine to keep on the objective because he was talking about how they already knew about what the orb does. Now, seemingly showing no sign of a daze, Minato questions how the orb was attached as it flashes. Minato then begins to move his arm. Tobirama completely blitzes him. Okay, so yes, I know that was a long-winded point, but the amount of people who overestimate Minato's days and downplay Tobirama is preposterous. So if you couldn't tell, Minato's days is not a stupor, and if it's anything, it's just brief periods of sadness when he's thinking about how he failed Kid Obito. And then he actually gets very frustrated when he thinks about Obito now and what he's become. So please, claiming that KCM2 is slower than a base Minato due to this is just kind of stupid. And again, I encourage all you guys to please go read these chapters. The day starts from 6:37 and ends at 6:43. So yeah, this Tobirama would be above a KCM2 Minato in speed. And that's not all. As I mentioned, Tobirama would be above an EMS Madara and a base Hashirama in terms and like heavily into in terms of like how Tobirama was heavily praised for his water style, and other exceptional abilities such as tandem paper bombs or the Edo Tensei. Or how about the flying thunder god that Minato would spam? Tobirama's water style was also capable of slicing the god tree roots, which were able to grab and throw Bijou Sage Mode and KCM2 Minato, and just kind of throw them down to the ground and rip the cloak straight off them. So again, if you subscribe to the idea that you believe BSM beats EMS Madara and you think that Madara is above Sage Mode Hashirama, then go ahead and swap Minato over Tobirama, which that's kind of if you want. And if you want a more in-depth analysis on Tobirama versus Minato, I do have that up on my channel. Now, yeah, Sage Mode Hashirama really is that strong. It is an absolute beast. And I'm sure you're coming off the Tobirama section saying that, wait, what the hell, Virtue? You just said Tobirama was faster than Hashirama. And no, I said that Tobirama would be above a base Hashirama, which is consistent since Madara is the one who makes the statement based on the idea off his own power. And I suppose his power that he was talking about in the final valley. So now you may be saying that, well, Tobirama is above EMS Madara and only base Hashirama. And well, yes, base Hashirama, whilst alive, is no joke. So let's go back to the final battle and analyze what specifically the base form beats did. So, in which you'll find that base Hashirama is reacting to EMS Madara on several occasions, overpowering the full Nine Tails, outspeeding the full Majestic Attire Susanoo, as well as he mentions that he doesn't even want to hurt Madara. And the initial flashback panel, they clash in Kenjutsu, in which Hashirama was at base, whilst Madara was in EMS with the Nine Tails. So, staying on this, Madara makes the claim that, quote, it's been a while since we've each gone all out on each other. I have changed, as you see. So this statement from Madara implies that he's going all out, and Hashirama is still not in Sage Mode. Therefore, Hashirama would be above an EMS Madara without Sage Mode. And when we look into the fight and see what Sage Mode does, we can see that he rips the Susanoo off Kurama, and then Madara gets onto the head of Kurama, in which Hashirama's hand comes down and Madara dives out of the way. So at face value, it seems like he's reacting to Sage Hashirama here, which, makes him kind of on that level. However, Hashirama would have no incentive to use his full speed at Kurama's head, as he's simply trying to gently rest his hand on him to put him to sleep, not knock him out or anything like that. So, yeah. When Madara goes back and refers to Hashirama, he is more than likely referring to a base Hashirama, and there's really no way to prove that Tobirama would be randomly 10 times above Madara's estimate. So Hashirama is here and is stronger than Madara and faster than Prime Tobirama. So let's compare Hashirama to the characters that we brought up in the war. So when Blind Madara comes back, he's actually stated to be on the back of Volume 69 to be the strongest enemy of the shinobi world has ever seen. Now, no, but some might be screaming, but Jubito is not an enemy because he's a good guy, so you can't include Jubito, in which is fine. If you really want to say that, sure, that Obito has turned by this point. However, Madara was still able to combat Tobirama and react to his teleportation, in which I'll just throw up here on the screen every time Jubito failed to react to Tobirama's teleportation. So this Madara, if he isn't stronger, he is certainly faster than Jubito, and he still only has one eye, and Hashirama says that he's getting close to his past power, obviously referencing his EMS state. This means that we'll be going under the assumption that the curse mark translates to Sage Mode, and that Sage Mode is a 10 times amp, and that Hashirama would be 10 times stronger and faster than this Madara at a bare minimum. So he is 10 times faster than Tobirama, who was blitzing an unstable Jubito. I know. Again, this placement is very controversial with a few different interpretations, which I will go into. And I believe that the most fair you can decide that this is probably a good spot for him. Hiruzen now is quite the meme. Many think of his old man strength and remember how he is supposedly the god of Shinobi and was like the strongest ever, which I know is crazy. But on over five occasions, Hiruzen is called the strongest Hokage ever in his prime. So this is again consistent with the fourth data book claiming that he surpassed Tobirama in talent even from childhood. Now there is an argument going around that for the Tobirama and like goons and stuff like that, and the argument comes from the Danzo flashback in the Five Kage Summit, where we see Tobirama's death, or I guess right before his death. It's stated that Tobirama is the greatest village or greatest shinobi in the village. Sorry, meaning that Tobirama would be above Hiruzen. With that being said, I don't really get this argument. I mean, like, sure, Hiruzen here is weaker than Tobirama, yeah, but this just means that Hiruzen's prime is definitely closer to the time where he like trains Sani and not here. So yeah, again, this means that Hiruzen doesn't really have any anti-feats in this like era either. So him being above Hashirama and Tobirama isn't wrong or inconsistent considering all of the statements. Hiruzen also is similar to Hashirama, and Tobirama possesses every single chakra in nature and knows every ability in Konoha. This would include even more niche stuff such as the gates or the anti-Sharingan techniques. Hiruzen also possesses Monkey King Enma, who is the strongest of all the animal summons. So yeah, Hiruzen's a beast. So yeah, two characters at one spot. Well, I know. Listen, remember how in the very beginning where I said some matches get really close and they get kind of closer more towards you get to the first place, and this matchup does have a winner. However, it's kind of extremely unclear on which one it is. The two combatants are obviously Hokage Shikamaru and DMS Kakashi. So yeah, for either one can be above the other, it would be kind of incorrect. And now, I mentioned in the beginning that the crazy counter abilities won't be a direct placement. So I do lean to Shikamaru as Shikamaru has blatantly really good speed beats, such as being capable of reacting to a limiter code and a version 2 delta, who would obviously be above unquantifiably the likes of Kaguya. However, what if I said the same is applied to DMS Kakashi, and Kakashi, as a recent, is truly gaining some respect, which I do love to see. Which what makes Kakashi so unique is Kakashi is able to completely blitz Kaguya, this Kaguya, who is exponentially greater in power due to the in power compared to the one who is combating in the Boil Release Naruto prior. So Kakashi would be a blitz level above Kaguya, which is really good, meaning that similar to Shikamaru, they're both a layer unquantifiably above Kaguya. Now, of course, Kakashi does have far more lethal and effective abilities than Shikamaru's Shadow Possession being the Kamui and Kamui Shuriken. Now, don't count the Shadow Possession out, as it was able to hold down base Naruto, Kinshiki, and the Five Kage. So again, this match does have a definite winner. It's really hard to make any assertive argument as to why one side straight up wins, and I would lean to Shikamaru due to him having a few layers of being unquantifiably above. But again, that's kind of subjective, and for me to claim that. So there's no really way to clear argue this. And if you were to say that there is a clear argument of why one's the winner, that's simply erroneous. Adult Naruto. I mean, let's be honest. What did you guys expect? Naruto is the strongest shinobi to ever live. In the Naruto manga, he's able to keep up, or in the Boruto manga, he's able to keep up and outpace Fusion Momoshiki even whilst drained severely. This is a base, may I mind you. Naruto is able to hit him, dodge his attacks, and consistently. And then Naruto, once he goes into six pass stage mode, and then from that point forward, Naruto is more than capable of catching his taijutsu, blitzing him to the point where Momoshiki was demonstrably shown incapable of dodging and reacting to Naruto. Even the source material for this fight, or one of the source materials being a novel, corroborates this much further, claiming that Momo realized that the two men who stood before him were very strong, and they could even hold their own in a one-on-one, meaning that Naruto's above 8 fused Momoshiki is in general, who'd be above, Kaguya. And same with, you like to argue the Shikamaru point and Kakashi point I brought up in the last two. Naruto with 6-pass stage mode is above Shikamaru as he snaps his shadow possession in the novel, who just held down the 5 Kage, and Naruto is certainly leagues above Kakashi in speed, so the chance of Kamui working is irrelevant. And if you guys remember the premise, it would be who is directly above, and not just certain hexes are just kind of not going to be counted, right? So yeah, there isn't much for Naruto in this section, of course, but I'd be more than willing to make an adult Naruto video if you guys are, for whatever reason, skeptical of his placement. So yeah, this was a very long-winded video, and I really hope you guys did make it all the way to the end. Thank you guys so much. It means the absolute world, and I really did hope you learned something here, as I put tons of effort into this video, trying to give you guys all the arguments instead of just content farming on some basic list. So yeah, I hope you were informed on something throughout this video. And if you were, of course, maybe consider subscribing, as, seriously, you made it this far, like, subscribe. Also, make sure to let me know in the comments if you do enjoy my longer videos such as this one, or the 20-minute-ish range videos. And as for the ranking related videos, I do have a ranking video with the Sage of Thick Calves on his channel, where we rank the Akatsuki, so make sure to go check him out. And yeah, as always, love you guys.